Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Thursday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is October 15th, 2015. When we're not here, you can always check out the information online at www.arh.noaa.gov or simply type in weather.gov and navigate to the destination of your choice. Or you can call our weather information line at 1-800-472-0391. And in just a moment, we're going to be on to the public aviation and marine forecast. So let's just start by looking out towards the west. We do have two stacked low pressure systems that we're going to be looking at. This first one is a large comma cloud here with the center just west of Shimia. Putting that into motion, you can see this rotating counterclockwise and actually starting to shift towards the east direction. So putting this into motion one more time, you can see that is starting to make progress. It's been sitting out there for several days. Now looking closer to home at the next low pressure system of concern as we head into the next few days. There's a large plume of clouds that are out ahead of the main low center that's moving up here from the North Pacific. And as you can see, this occluded front is stretching all the way back towards the southwest in Kodiak Island. So putting this into motion one more time, you don't see a very tight spin, but the low center is winding up just south of Kodiak earlier this afternoon. So we have some rain moving in mainly along the coast here with clouds just moving out ahead of the system. Some breaks were noted in between systems with clouds just staying low to mid clouds all across the north and northwestern coastal areas. So mostly cloudy for the most part across the state. Here's this occluded front moving up from the North Pacific, a 988 millibar low with some light rain mainly occurring out ahead of the system with a rain band mainly along Middleton Island and back towards the southeast here. Light rain has moved into the southeast ahead of this frontal boundary, which is just kind of stalled across the northern coast here. So across the mainland areas, we did have some patchy fog along the interior on up towards the Arctic coast. Kind of quiet around the northern half of the state, and most of the area stayed dry today, with ridging being the main influence across the mainland. Here across the eastern Bering, just a few minor showers in between the two major systems that are out here. The western Aleutian low is a 980 millibar system, and this system is starting to wind down. It had very strong gusty winds between 40 and 50 miles per hour. It's tapering off between 25 to 40 miles per hour this afternoon. However, the low pressure here across the Gulf is bringing winds between 25 and 40 miles per hour, with gusts all the way up to 55 miles per hour, mainly across the Gulf waters and along the northern and western areas of the Gulf, including Kodiak Island. Those winds are getting into. So what we're going to see tonight is the upper level system is just going to shift ever so slightly north and keeping that low center just creeping towards the Kodiak Island. So we'll see an increase in the wind gusts all across the Gulf waters here, mainly just coming around Towards the Kenai, we'll see gusts, but as you head inland, the winds will quickly drop off. So another quiet night will allow patchy fog to develop across all areas of the state, and along the Arctic coast, we'll see some snow shower activity as this ridging moves north. We still have some moisture there, so an upper level disturbance will move through and give them some snow showers. Across the southeast, expect the rain to be on the increase this evening. However, with an offshore easterly flow, the rain amounts will be light, probably under 1/10 of an inch or less, as well as the south central locations. Very light rainfall expected overnight, on average 1/10 or less overnight. The most accumulations will be across the northeastern Gulf Coast back towards the eastern side of the Kenai. Can see anywhere up to 1/4 of an inch, mainly locally higher totals, and Kodiak Island will also be in the heavier amounts tonight. Now across the southwest, expect a few light rain showers. They should stay all rain in areas that do experience showers, as they're going to be hovering in the mid to upper 30s for the most part. Some light snow showers across the interior, and then we have a large area of the Bering that'll see some light rain, a little bit heavier rain along the another trough boundary just across the central Aleutians, but primarily the rain out in those locations will be well under 1/10 of an inch tonight. As we head into your day on Friday, this low pressure system will continue at 984 millibars. However, the system is not going to be packing the punch it has the last few days, just mainly light shower activity around the system and giving some definition to the winds across the frontal boundary out of the southeast. Now, this low pressure system moving up towards the Gulf will be late to bring some rain. We'll see most of the surge of rain that we're going to get tonight taper off by the morning. This frontal boundary is actually not going to be creeping in until late tomorrow afternoon and the overnight hours for Friday. So expect a little bit of a break in the early part of the day across the coastal areas, with most of the precip staying along the Gulf locations and back towards Kodiak Island. And then it'll start lifting to the north by late tomorrow afternoon. That's when we'll see all the moisture beginning to push inland. So the rain with this system will be light once again, with easterly flow starting to change direction across the eastern channel. So most of the rainfall will be along the Panhandle, up to 1/2 an inch along the Panhandle locations and the northeastern Gulf, and back towards the eastern Kenai. Lighter rain across the southern mainland, a mix of rain and snow, as we still have some colder temperatures across the Copper River Basin back towards the Matanuska Valley. Expect a mix of rain and snow, but no accumulations of snow expected at the lower elevations. And a matter of fact, all the lower elevations across these areas will probably be a light rain. To the north, just some light shower activity for Friday night as some moisture moves out ahead of the system. Not expecting anything in accumulations here, and patchy fog also all the way up through the coast, with some light shower activity up there near Barrow. As we head into your Saturday forecast, it looks very wet, but this is going to be a showery pattern as this low pressure system just shifts back towards the northwest and begins to break up, but still keeps an occlusion along the front here, with a very cold air mass staying across the Bering at this point. But we are going to see a gradual change in the temperatures as this cold air mass begins to make it towards Kodiak Island late on Saturday. So expect most of the rain again to stay across the Gulf, with the showery precipitation inland, snow in the higher, scattered snow showers in the higher elevations. This will be the area to watch up across the northern half of the state. As this boundary moves up, they'll start seeing accumulating snow with this front making it towards the Brooks Range. So another thing to note is the front will also be tightening the pressure gradient across the north and western areas of the state. The winds will be changing out of the east direction and become quite gusty by your Saturday forecast, all the way across towards the Bering Strait, the Seward Peninsula. So be aware, winds will be increasing there between 30 to 40 miles per hour, with higher gusts up to 45 miles per hour. this low pressure system out in the Bering will continue to push to the east. However, only light showers and patchy fog, mainly along the central areas of the Bering, with light snow showers along the northern Bering, where the colder temperatures are just going to be settling in once again behind this low pressure system. Now taking a look at your temperatures today, very similar to yesterday. In a matter of fact, a net hit 59 today was the hottest temperature across the state there in the southeast, where they had temperatures mainly in the mid-40s to near 50 degrees. All across the coastal locations, they were all in the mid-40s, with a change of temperatures into the upper 30s as you headed up towards the interior. And then Arctic Village had actually crept up to 18 degrees this afternoon before they started dipping back down. Along the northern coast and northwest coast, mainly in the 20s, and then climbing towards the Seward Peninsula into the lower 30s. Across the southwest today, they saw temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 50s when you got down towards the Alaska Peninsula. And then across the Bering, mainly temperatures in the mid-40s with slightly warmer temperatures out towards the western Bering. And then for temperatures for tonight, not much change across the Bering, mainly in the 40s, just a little bit lower than their daytime highs. And then across the coastal areas of the Gulf, we'll see temperatures falling back into the lower 40s. Just inland, temperatures will be going down to near freezing, and below across the interior locations, coldest across the northern areas of the state in the teens to lower 20s. Coldest again tomorrow will be around the Arctic Village locations and up towards Barrow, and then we'll see some freezing temperatures hovering right around the Seward Peninsula. Warmest across the lower half of the state in the upper 30s to lower 40s once again, getting up into the 50s across the southeast. Possibly even warmer tomorrow once this front pulls through during the late afternoon. Will allow them to warm up pretty good. And then persistent temperatures across the Bering and the Aleutians. Now, for your flying conditions tomorrow, your concerns are going to be across the northern coast, across the fronts in the Bering and in the Gulf. We'll see widespread IFR conditions along the frontal boundaries with widespread MVFR conditions across the waters, and also look for patchy fog conditions to develop overnight across the southeastern areas and all along the Alaska range. So we will see those conditions improve during the day tomorrow, but once that front moves back in the late afternoon, we will see conditions go down once again. The passes in more depth, we have Anaktuvik Pass with MVFR, and Adigan will be MVFR as well tomorrow. Looking at your Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, well, they'll be IFR and improving to MVFR later in the day. And then Rainy Pass will be MVFR for the day, and Windy will also be MVFR. MVFR will possibly improve to VFR for Isabel Pass along the range, and Mentasta will stay down to MVFR for much of the day. Looking at Tanita, IFR to MVFR, and Portage will be MVFR with IFR conditions across the eastern areas. Chilkoot and White Pass will also be MVFR. Looking at your freezing levels tomorrow, kind of draped along the northwest coast and along south central, and then your 2,000-foot levels across the central interior out towards the central parts of the Bering, and then climbing to 6,000 feet as you get towards the Alaska Peninsula, and 6,000 feet across south central, and back down up to 10,000 feet as you head towards the southeast tomorrow morning. Okay, for your icing concerns, again, across the two frontal areas in the Bering and across the Gulf, above 2,000 feet for the northern Bering, above 7,000 feet as you get towards the Aleutians, and then above 5,000 feet all across the Gulf locations, and freezing be concerned below 2,000 across the north. Here's your jet stream. This is the amplified pattern that we've been talking about for the last several days. This ridge being a blocking condition, this low has nowhere to go at the moment until we get some more energy coming from the west. Looking at your 9,000-foot winds, we have the strongest winds out ahead of this low pressure system that's near Kodiak Island, between 20 to 35 knots at 9,000 feet, and a southerly flow across much of the state, a little bit lighter across the north. The southeast will also see a strong southerly flow between 35 and 45 knots. Across the Bering, looking at a southeasterly flow Across the eastern half of the bearing between 20 to 25 knots, change of direction around the low pressure system that's out here near Shimia with the strongest winds to the south of that low pressure system. Looking at 3,000 feet, we have the low pressure system stacked at the surface with the strong winds all around this low pressure system at 3,000 between 35 and 40 knots. And then this low pressure system south of Kodiak, very strong flow around this system, southerly across most of the Gulf waters with a very strong flow of 50 knots across the north and western areas of the Gulf, possibly 60 knots here as you head towards the Shelikof Strait. And then we'll see the conditions a little much lighter across the interior areas, change of direction around that ridge to the north. Looking at your turbulence for tomorrow, we have below 5,000 feet concern around the southeast, all along the northern half of the Gulf and back towards the western areas of the Gulf. Across the northern areas, below 4,000 feet there near the eastern Beaufort seacoast. And then we'll also have the concern along the boundary and the low pressure system out there in the bearing below 6,000 feet. Okay, in just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
Solar System Samba. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
If you've been waking up early over the past week, you've probably noticed there's quite a bit of activity in the eastern sky just before sunrise.
That's right, James. We're in the middle of a multi-planet conjunction, or as we like to call it around here on Stargazers, a planet clump.
As the month of October continues into November, this planet clump takes on some strange patterns as the planets move past one another.
What are we talking about? Let's show you. Okay, we have our skies set for just before sunrise at the beginning of this week. The date is Monday, October 12th, and as the week passes, we'd like you to watch the planets do what they do best.
You mean wander?
Exactly. In the early part of this week, you'll see 4 relatively bright objects. The one highest above the horizon is Regulus, the star marking the heart of Leo the lion.
The next one down is Venus, named after the Roman goddess of beauty and love. If you look at Venus through a telescope, it'll appear near the end of its crescent phase, showing us just a little more of its nighttime side than its daytime side.
The next object you'll see is the red planet Mars, named after the Roman god of war. Mars is over 200 million miles away from Earth, so it will appear quite dim compared to the next planet in our conjunction.
That's right, Dean. The fourth bright object in this part of the sky happens to be the giant planet Jupiter. This is an exciting time for planet watching because from our position in the solar system, both Mars and Venus will cross our line of sight with Jupiter.
Put another way, between now and the beginning of November, we will see Mars and Venus do a solar system samba with Jupiter. So let's take a look. Here's what the sky will look like in the pre-dawn hours on October 13th, then the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th.
Whoa, check out how close Mars and Jupiter are getting.
Yes, indeed. Near the end of this week on October 17th, Mars and Jupiter will appear at their closest, less than a full moon width apart.
But that's not the end. As we move into next week, Mars hands Jupiter off to another dance partner, the planet Venus. Here's how the planets transition. Here's the sky on October 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
At this point, Jupiter appears halfway between Mars and Venus. It's as if you were taking a picture of Venus and Jupiter and Mars were photobombing the picture by standing in the background.
Venus and Jupiter also form a nice triangle with Mars on October 26th.
Let's advance time even further. Here's the sky on October 27th, 28th, and then on the 29th. We're treated to another lineup, but this time Venus appears halfway between Mars and Jupiter.
The high point of the encounter happens on the morning of November 3rd. Mars, the god of war, and Venus, the goddess of love, once again have a close encounter. The last time these two planets were this close was back in February of this year. And if that wasn't enough, we have one last super close Venus planet scoochie for you, but it's not until January of next year.
That's right, James. Mark your calendars for the morning of January 9th, 2016. As Venus heads back towards the horizon, it's going to pay a super close visit to Saturn among the stars of Scorpius the Scorpion. Even the moon will join the fun a few days earlier on January 7th, 2016.
So there you have it, a delectable dance of the planets that rivals the moves of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Face east and watch the pre-dawn sky this week between October 12th and 18th.
And then watch the planetary partners trade off throughout the end of October.
And behold as the dance reaches its frenzied finale during the first week of November.
It's all there for you to see if you remember to keep looking up.
It's a time-honored tradition, teaching the next generation how to fish and enjoy our rivers. But what are you teaching them? Rivers change constantly, producing new hazards such as snags, holes, and rocks. And tragedy can strike in an instant. Keep your family traditions alive. Wear a life jacket. Don't drink and boat. Know the river conditions and be watchful with children. That way there will always be another trip.
All right, let's take a look at your ice conditions along the Arctic coast. Here along the Beaufort Sea coast, this area is prime for ice growth. So looking at this from yesterday, we have seen a little bit of closing along the ice edge here. Not much change out towards the east, and a little bit of ice forming here along the Chukchi sea coast. Looking across the southeast for tomorrow, looking at a southeasterly flow across the entire area, small crafts, and then across the inner channels expect seas between 5 to 6 feet. The outer waters will be between 12 to 14 feet. Looking at your Saturday forecast, winds come down a little bit, small craft towards the Dixon entrance there, all out of the south to southeasterly direction between 15 and 20 knots primarily. Seas across the inner channels will be between 3 to 5 feet. The outer waters will see between 10 to 12 feet. Looking at your Friday forecast across the Gulf and the Cook Inlet, we see mostly an easterly flow to northeast. And then across the Prince William Sound, we'll see seas around 4 feet, as well as the northern Cook Inlet. And then as we head south, we have 9 to 11 feet, and the Shelikof Strait will also be right around that 10 feet. Now across the western Gulf locations, expect between 11 to 14-foot seas and gale warnings across much of the area out there. Looking at your Saturday forecast, improved conditions with winds across the Cook Inlet out of the north direction, and then becoming more of a southeasterly flow across the Gulf waters. And then we'll see seas on this day between 2 to 3 feet across the Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, down through Shelikof Strait with variable winds out there. And then seas across the Gulf will be between 9 to 10 feet. Along your Alaska Peninsula, we'll have winds out of the north and northeasterly direction with small craft out there near Bristol Bay and just to the south of the eastern Alaska Peninsula. Seas on the Bering side will be between 4 to 5 feet, across the North Pacific between 10 and 11. A little bit of change of direction for your Saturday, between 15 to 20 knots across the entire area, 3 to 5 foot seas across the Bering, and then for your North Pacific will be between 7 and 8. Looking at your Friday forecast for the Aleutians, we will have the strongest winds out towards the western Aleutians at 25 knots, small craft there. Also mainly between 10 to 20 knots elsewhere out of the south and west direction. A little bit lighter winds there towards the east, with seas between 4 to 8 feet across the eastern half of the Aleutians and 8 to 13 feet across the western half. Looking at your Saturday forecast, lighter wind speeds this day. It's up towards Shemya. We'll still keep a northerly wind change of direction there, 25 knots, and then 10 to 15 knots elsewhere with variable wind directions there across the central and eastern Aleutians. Seas on this day will be between 5 to 9 feet, and the seas will be highest out towards the western Aleutians. Looking at your western coast forecast, we'll see the strong winds between 20 to 25 knots dropping off towards the Pribilofs and becoming more southeasterly flow at 15 knots. And seas on this day will be between 3 to 8 feet with the highest seas towards the northern Bering. Looking at your Saturday forecast, stronger winds are going to be setting up across the northern areas between 25 to 30 knots, small crafts there. And then towards the south, we'll see a little bit lighter wind speeds as you head towards the Pribilof Islands at variable 10 knots. Seas on this day will be between 4 to 9 feet, the highest seas once again across the northern areas. Now looking at your Friday forecast across the northwest coast, we'll see primarily across the Kotzebue Sound out of the northeasterly direction, changing to the south across the northwestern coastal areas, and once again changing towards the east direction as you head towards the eastern Beaufort seacoast. Seas on this day will be primarily between 2 to 4 feet. On your Saturday, expect winds to be picking up with gales out here towards the northwest Kotzebue Sound area with primarily a northeast to easterly direction and small craft for the rest of the area. We'll see seas between 5 to 10 feet on Saturday. Taking another look at your forecast for tonight, a push of rain will be making it into south central with the most of the rain staying across the north and western areas of the Gulf. Some showers inland, but primarily just foggy conditions setting up across the northern areas with a low pressure system out in the Bering, not making much progress, and light rain showers occurring along this system. For your Friday forecast, this system is going to be primarily breaking down light rain around the Bering Low, and across the Gulf flow, we'll see stronger winds across the eastern and northern areas of the Gulf, with the winds coming down across the Kodiak Island. We'll see most of the precipitation moving in late in the day on Friday, and then overnight Friday into Saturday, more precipitation will be moving up towards the coast, with a possibility for precipitation in the form of snow accumulating from Fairbanks north, mix of rain and snow to the south. And across the west, we'll continue to see this low pressure system breaking down across the Bering. Thanks for staying with us tonight. Hope to join you tomorrow. Dave Percy will be with you tomorrow night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.